First of all, I want to say thank you for that solidarity statement. It really helped to jumpstart the International Solidarity Campaign, and I'll send a message here in a second for everyone that picked that up. That immediately was able to, we were able to get statements from all over the world, from Brazil, from Mexico, from Costa Rica, from France, from Spain, even all the way from Japan. And so that early support really helped. And I wanted to thank you, and that's part of the reason why I'm here, because you guys stepped up. So I think it would be most useful to spend the time just outlining some things that are going on in the United States and then taking questions. And so specifically to my case, or the case of the transit workers in Chicago. So so my name again is Erek Slater. I'm a bus driver, a bus operator for the Chicago Transit Authority, the public buses in Chicago for about 14 years, over 14 years now. And I'm also workers elected shop steward and executive board member for the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 241, which is the workers union over on the bus side of things. I just want to make clear my comments here are my own. I don't speak for my union in this discussion. I don't speak for the Chicago Transit Authority. Okay, so what's been going on? So you guys are aware that the United States epicenter of the pandemic for some time now, and transit workers are on the front lines of this. We are also disproportionately African American, about 90% in Chicago, and the virus is affecting Blacks and Latinx much more greatly. And you know, we're dying. Our family members are dying. We're getting the worst of it when we're not dying. You know, a lot of my coworkers are coming back from 5 weeks hospital in isolation. Basically, their parents or their grandparents are in isolation, and it's a really gruesome death when you can't see your family, and the whole family's afraid. So that's, as a shop steward, I've been dealing with that for the past couple of months. So those are the circumstances in which yet another racist state murder of a Black person in the United States occurred. Now, what's different was just the context I'm bringing up, but also that it was caught on video. That's not new. We had Laquan McDonald in Chicago, which nearly pushed out the ruling class of Chicago a couple years back. Was another young Black man who was murdered from the back with 16 shots. You may not have heard that over across the pond, but that was a major murder. There's been so many of them, but this one was different in that it was sparked an outrage which was multi-ethnic, multiracial in the response. It was extremely deep, and it certainly as deep as I've seen anything in the United States in my 40 years. We can certainly look back to the civil rights movement, to the Black Power movement in the United States, to see some corollaries or similarities. Okay, so this happened in Milwaukee, over in Minneapolis, and we have a local of my union, International ATU, Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 1005. Some of the workers refused to drive the police who were being sent to the protests. They refused to drive protesters who had been arrested by the police, and they did so very publicly. And this was a rank and file initiative that was made. But what was very important is these were unionized workers that were backed up by their local union. So workers had discussions, emergency meetings, and put out a public statement which discussed the connection between the social justice issue of the stopping of murdering Blacks, and also industrial issue of our power as transit workers to be able to move people to work and back home, versus in school. And so, but more than that, the International Union of 200,000 families in Canada and the United States, the Amalgamated Transit Union, also supported the statements of the local union. And that was a big deal. I remember I was in my executive board meeting when one of the vice presidents of my union put forward a motion in support of Minneapolis workers and our local union. I was all excited. I seconded the motion. It carried unanimously, and we publicized it. And the next couple of days, things heated up in Chicago. We had 1,000 arrests in Chicago. that weekend of May 30th, 31st. There was a mass demonstration of about 25,000 people. I was with my family in it on the 30th. And in the evening, the Chicago Transit Authority was used by the city administration to trap protesters late that evening. And they shut off public transportation and put an order saying that anyone who was out on the streets was now acting illegally and could be arrested. And they did that 30 minutes before. And then they shut off public transportation so you couldn't get out. So it was a trap. And they used a lockout of public transit workers to stop this or to harm this legitimate protest of police murder, of state murder. So that was going on the night before. The day after, I come to lead a meeting of my coworkers, which I've done for 6-7 years. I've been elected to 3 terms, and we have meetings on property all the time, and we don't disrupt workflow or et cetera. We're all off the clock because we know the labor law. And so we led this meeting just simply reading the verbatim what the international president said. The president said, look, just like we have the right to refuse unsafe working conditions in the coronavirus, we also have the right to refuse to drive police to these protests. We have the right to refuse to put persons who are arrested on our buses. This is an abuse. This is the word the international president, an abuse of public transportation. And I read this verbatim to my coworkers, and I asked if workers felt this was safe. And that's when management interrupted, shouted over our meeting, threatened to fire me, threatened to call the police, and sure enough, they did both those things. They called the police and arrived, and they fired me a few days later, or they removed me from service, and then a few weeks afterwards, they fired me on July 7th. So they followed through. And what is it that I did? I was leading a democratic discussion about fighting against state violence, and they explicitly showed what side the police were on in the labor struggle. In this case, where the police repeatedly, they just did it Tuesday, when I was representing workers as I'm required to by the bylaws and constitution of my local. And management again brought the Chicago Police Department to come. 5 officers came to remove me from my position, assisting and defending workers this Tuesday, just 2 days ago. We haven't had time to make that public yet, so I think this is the first few places we're doing so. So there's been this is an attack on the workers' movement generally. It's not just centrally, it's a social justice issue. It's the necessity of the labor movement to become involved in social justice issues like the fight against state violence against Blacks. But it's also the rights, it's an issue about the rights of unions to have meetings and discuss things with our coworkers. Because of course, the management and the city administration doesn't care if workers speak privately. What they care about is when these private discussions become serious, public, organized discussions, which then action can be taken, like the workers in Minneapolis did, like the workers in New York did, and participated in this mass mobilization. It wasn't just, they couldn't just isolate the protest movement into what they argued were people looting or youth doing violent actions. Instead, it can it can be even more so be the disciplined, respected working people, the leaders of families, the working people who move the cities and do the work. And that's what they were afraid of. And that's why they fired me. This is the second time they fired me on similar grounds. We had an international campaign and won my job back in 2016. They, again, did not want a union that was going to fight for its coworkers, did not want a union that was organizing to assist workers to take control of their own working conditions and participate more broadly. They were afraid, actually, during the 2016 time they fired me, because we were joining with the teachers. The teachers were going on strike. And we filed unfair labor practices, et cetera, when they tore down our flyers in solidarity with the teachers, which held a one-day, if you will, general strike in May 1st of 2000, or April 1st of 2016. Okay, so that's basically what's going on. I just want to make a few points quickly about the connection between the coronavirus and the movement more generally. And I understand I'm just meeting you guys, but I understand you guys are struggling for a different direction in the labor movement in Britain. And I too am doing the same in the United States. We have what we call business unionism. I'm not sure if that's the word you use it. You might call it a company union or a top-down perspective of unionism, where workers see the union as just a place to get some services. So if you get in trouble, you call the union to get some defense. But instead, what I and others, and I understand you guys are well, are fighting for really the reverse, where the ranks of the union control the union and have a social justice perspective about the responsibility of unionized workers to use our power, and it's significant, the industrial power of working people, to make society better, and to improve our working conditions and our living conditions for working people more generally. So the problem right now is we're so flat-footed in the labor movement right now. You can see this in the coronavirus. You can see the broader struggle against the racist murders. And, you know, we'll hear statements like I heard people talk about Maya Angelou. You know, just, you know, they'll talk about Martin Luther King, and they'll say, you know, we're in favor of racial equality. They'll write something up, but not to take the industrial power, the organizational strength of working people. So, for instance, the Amalgamated Transit Union, or other unions like it, like the American Federation of Labor, this Congress of Industrial Organizations, 13 million workers are organized in that. We still have 100,000 police in that union, right? It is a cop union within our own international organization, or national organization, and there's a battle to kick them out right now. You know, these are the same people who bust up picket lines. Never mind what's been going on against Black people in the United States. So there's a schism, a struggle going on, and it's white hot. It's right now in the labor movement, and I think that groupings like that I'm just meeting you guys for the first time, that's going on all over North America. I hope it's also going all over in Europe, where workers are trying to organize like the West Virginia teachers did, from a rank and file perspective, and leading the unions and using it as a tool to do this work, rather than just this paperwork form of unionism that is peaceful with the boss, you know, is private backroom deals with management, and then comes back and says, hey, we did the best we could, but you know, 600 of you got to get fired, sorry, you know, rather than organizing us from the rank and file perspective. So I'm very excited to be working with you and joining in the struggle, and I hope we can support each other across the pond, they say.